If there's one thing baseball fans have gotten used to in really almost the last decade mostly, it's the Houston Astros dominating. They've genuinely become the Yankees during this time, what the Yankees used to be. The team that dominated year in, year out, was in it till the end, deep into the playoffs, if not winning at all, while also being the most hated and loathed team in baseball. Because of the players they've had, the drama and scandals they've been involved in, Houston really has become the team to beat. The team everyone wants come October to beat, knowing it's the only true way they can prove they're the best. And despite all the drama, the hate, and obstacles that have come their way, the Astros have continued to win and be the best, but 2024 has started off a little differently than usual. Instead of the Astros doing what they usually do and showing why they went to the ALCS or the World Series the year prior, things have been a lot slower. The production hasn't really been there, neither have the wins, more obstacles continue to pile on, and it all makes the question of if this team's dynasty and run of dominance is over as valid as ever to ask. 2015 was the sneak peek of the constant winning to eventually come, mainly because of the new young core that was beginning to form. 2017 is largely known as the starting point, but 2015 was when the foundation started to get a little bit off the ground running. Jose Altuve had actually been around for 4 years leading into 2015 on some dreadful Astros teams. I mean, I'm talking when they were so bad they couldn't be deemed a 5th place team, so the league named them as being in 6th place, just to emphasize how bad they really were. No, it's because back before 2013, Houston was a National League team, and since there were an uneven amount of teams for each league, the NL Central, that had Houston in it, had 6 teams. 2012 was Altuve's first full big league season. He was an average hitter, regressing the next year in the Astros' first season as an American League team. They stayed in last place, but then came 2014, and for the first time since 2010, the Astros weren't a last place team. They were still bad in 4th place, but improved. And it was our first look at Jose Altuve's true potential, with him going on to hit .341 and win the batting title, with it also being the best batting average in all of baseball, not just the American League. George Springer made his debut and played about half the games for his rookie year. Carlos Correa followed in 2015, so that was the first crack at the young core of the now and the future for Houston, challenging the Rangers for the division, beating the Yankees in the wildcard game, and having their season end of the eventual World Series winning Royals, but not without giving them a fight too. 2016 wasn't great, and they regressed by a couple games, missing out on the postseason, but then 2017 arrived, and things were never the same again. Just like you not subscribing yet won't be the same again if you enjoy these videos and hit that button. Not only did the Astros go on to win over 100 games in their first championship in franchise history, but they'd win more games the next year, and more the next. And since 2017, the Astros have been to the ALCS every single year, so 7 straight trips to the ALCS, winning the pennant in 4 of those trips, and winning the World Series twice. Now, obviously 2017 is and forever will be looked at in a much different light than it was in 2017, as it was since proven that they cheated that season by illegally stealing signs electronically with an elaborate system to get ahead and know what pitches were coming. Obviously, that's a very self-inflicted wound, but it's still an obstacle that you may have expected to take the franchise down and stop them from winning once the scandal broke after 2019. With all the drama that followed, the hatred from baseball fans of all teams, the now tainted championship that many argue should have been stripped from them, despite all of that, the Astros continued on their winning ways. 2020 was weird, but if you want to count it, they went back to the ALCS and were a game away from going to the World Series. But more importantly, after George Springer left in free agency that offseason to Toronto, and 2019 Cy Young Award winner Justin Verlander being out for Tommy John surgery, they'd win 95 games in the division in 2021 and go all the way back to the World Series, losing to the Braves this time, but they were still the kings of the American League, even as they started hitting that time where their best players were hitting the free agent market. Like I said, Springer left before 2021, and now Carlos Correa was a free agent expected to leave, and that's exactly what he did, going to Minnesota. No problem though, because here comes Jeremy Pena to replace Correa at shortstop, the man who'd go on to win ALCS and World Series MVP as the Astros beat the Yankees again in the ALCS, sweeping them this time, going back to the World Series and winning it this time, officially proving to the entire world that they never needed to cheat to be a good team to begin with. Oh, and Justin Verlander, the 39-year-old coming back from Tommy John, 1.75 ERA in his 3rd Cy Young Award. Oh, and Yordan Alvarez, someone who's built himself into one of the game's best hitters. It just hasn't mattered what happens. The general manager, Jeff Luhnow, getting fired fired after the scandal dropped, the man that played a vital part in building the Astros' sustained system of winning. AJ Hinch, the manager, also getting fired at that time. The next general manager, James Click, being denied a new contract after they won in 2022. Garrett Cole leaving, George Springer leaving, Carlos Correa leaving, the injuries, even players like Alex Bregman regressing from what he was to start his career. No matter what gets thrown Houston's way, it all ends the same. They win the ALDS every year and more than half the time win the ALCS too. So even though they did lose last year to the Rangers in pretty shocking fashion, the Astros were still picked to at the very least make the postseason in 2024, if not the division again. Things were a little different heading into the season, a few tweaks, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was in a bad way at all. Dusty Baker retired, so in comes Joe Espada, their bench coach, getting the promotion as the new manager. He's already been in the organization, he's familiar with the guys, and as for the roster, mostly the same, but with one big notable name added. Josh Hader, arguably the best closer in the game to join an already strong bullpen, forming what many believe to be the scariest bullpen in baseball. The lineup is mostly the same, if anything better, considering they will get more consistent offense from the catcher's position, with Martin Maldonado going to the White Sox. So off another highly anticipated Astros season begins, and a month in, I'm asking the question, is this dynasty over? Now, some of you may deem it to not be a dynasty at all. Never actually haven't even been a dynasty, but to me, 2022 solidified it as one. You can disagree, that's totally fine, but to go 7 straight years with an ALCS appearance and 4 World Series appearances to go along with 2 championships sounds like a dynasty to me, even if the first one was tainted. If it was actually stripped and disqualified as a legit title, this would be a different conversation, but it wasn't. And even though they did cheat that year, they were still an insanely talented team, so this looks like a dynasty. But will 2024 be the mark of a newer and less exciting era in Houston? One thing remains consistent, and that's Jose Altuve. The man just continues to hit and hit and hit and build his Hall of Fame career. It's incredible. Other than that,
Houston, we have a problem.
I mentioned that highly anticipated bullpen and compared it to how it's actually been to start the year. Imagine a kid being afraid of a monster in their closet or under their bed, only for it to end up being some cute little stuffed animal. That's basically how it's gone. It starts at the top, and that's Josh Hader, who's now the richest reliever in baseball history. He's been pretty bad. The strikeout numbers are there, but so are the hits, and his ERA is over 7. Brian Abreu, one of the nastier relievers in baseball last year, has already allowed 4 home runs in April alone, just 2 less than the amount he allowed all of last year. Ryan Presley's been awful, so the supposed 3-headed monster in that bullpen has all been bad. There are a few other guys who have actually been good, but then you go to the rotation and it's full of injuries. That's been the biggest issue there. Guys like Christian Javier and Framber Valdez, both who have been great, have also been dealing with injuries. Javier's is a neck issue, but Valdez was on the injured list with elbow soreness. Obviously, and especially in this day and age, not ideal, which is the issue. Even if he's pitching, who's to say he all of a sudden won't be done for the year and more with Tommy John or some sort of elbow surgery? Guys are dropping left and right with this stuff, guys who have never even had prior warnings to any elbow issues. So Valdez, who's had elbow soreness now, seems to be walking on thin ice here. Hunter Brown, the man who was supposed to be the next Justin Verlander, more like the man who's actually the next Les Sweetland, no, but he's actually been real bad. Same with JP France. Justin Verlander is just getting back into things after starting the year hurt. Now, there are also some positives about the rotation, just like I mentioned about the bullpen, and it goes into the overall point that the Astros dynasty obviously isn't over just yet. Not right now, not this second. But what's going on just begs the question that it could be starting to end, like this is the beginning. The offense has overall been good, but I'll tell you what, man, Alex Bregman, I know it's early, and I mentioned this earlier briefly, but he just isn't anywhere near the same guy he used to be back before the scandal dropped. He really hasn't been the same since. It's not like he's been bad. He's had above average hitting seasons every year since. He's been a good hitter, and someone who also walks just about as many times as he strikes out, if not more. But he also used to be someone who looked like he was going to get a $300 million contract. He was that insanely good. Going from that to just a solid hitter who started off atrociously in 2024. Chas McCormick's been bad. And then Jose Abreu. My God, Jose Abreu, man. It's fascinating just how bad he's been, and it doesn't make enough sense. Regression is expected with age, but to the extent and how fast it's been happening that we've seen with Abreu, it's crazy. Like, it's insane. Abreu had never had a bad season in his entire career when he left the White Sox and signed with Houston. It's almost like Chicago put a curse on him to never be the same again, because after literally 9 seasons of Abreu being a really good hitter, one of the best in all baseball, he had a really bad 2023 season, with it being the first year he's ever had below average average numbers offensively. And then to start 2024, it just doesn't make sense. He's not even hitting 100 at the time of this video being made. The league average OPS plus is 100, so anything below is below league average, of course. And Abreu's OPS plus this year, -20. He has been beyond bad. That's just understating it. He just can't hit anymore for whatever reason, and it's getting to the point where his contract that was already short with the Astros may end even sooner. The Astros as a team are in last place at the time of this video. 10 games under 500, and it's actually their worst start to a season since 1969. So they're in trouble. There's no denying that. It hasn't looked good. But does that mean it'll continue this way? Not necessarily. I mentioned the offense being good overall, and it's true. Altuve's been Altuve. Jeremy Pena is hitting maybe the best he's ever had in his career so far. Kyle Tucker has been great. Jordan is Jordan. The bullpen has some other pieces while the big three has struggled. But it's not like Hader or Brian Abreu can't get back to what they once were. They obviously can, and if the starting rotation stays healthy, it can be arguably the best in baseball. I feel like the biggest issue at this point is even if the Astros start playing better, the hole they've dug themselves into to start is just tough. That's really big too. But it's not like their division isn't winnable. It obviously is. It doesn't look like anybody in the AL West will run away with it. I'm not a rocket scientist, but Houston probably won't stay behind the Angels and A's for the rest of the year. So that brings us to the Rangers and Mariners, who are and should be good teams, but again, I don't see anyone winning the division by a big lead or anything. So the Astros are not done, not yet, but they very well can be done as soon as in a couple months if not enough changes. They're also not necessarily built that well for the future, having a weaker farm system, ranked 27th in all baseball, although it's been that way for a few years now and they keep winning. But will that winning continue? It hasn't this April. They don't have a single top 100 prospect, and so like I said, in a couple months if things aren't changing that drastically, the Astros obviously could be an active seller at the deadline to help replenish the farm system, meaning they'd be calling it quits on 2024. You also just have the sheer fact that they're coming off 7 straight seasons of at least getting to the ALCS. How likely can they make it 8? We've gotten so used to Houston winning over the years. We've gotten so used to them being the team everyone wants to beat. But with other franchises starting to rise, along with a really slow start to this season, you can't deem the Astros 7-year-long dynasty and run of dominance over just yet. But to call it over in a couple months, or at the very least at some point this year, is not at all out of the realm of possibility.